Howdy hackers and welcome to another episode of FairLight TV. Today we will bring you one of the real highlights, an interview with one of the scene's real rock stars, Pex Mahoney Tuvesson, one half of the dynamic duo Mahoney and Cactus. I was able to spend quite a few hours with him on FairLight this year, and a few of those hours are also recorded, and I would like to share that talk with you. Super nice guy, super competent guy, and I really think the talk would be worthwhile watching as well for you. So over to the interview with Pex. Hello everybody and welcome to FairLight TV on FairLight. So we're actually trying something new. We're recording live and the guest of honor today is Mahoney Pex Tuvesson. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Nice being here. Actually, we're at FairLight. Those guys over here are really hungry, so we're supposed to go to eat lunch in just a few minutes, I guess.
Yes.
They've been doing hamburgers outside and it's really cozy. So it's a way of remembering good times from a long time ago, but doing it with these guys.
So we have set up everything with sound and everything, so I hope that's good, but you will hear people from the background. That's part of the experience, so that's not a disturbance, that's part of the experience.
We actually bring you to a demo party.
Yes.
So we're 30 people out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
And the only reason for going here, for other people, we would actually be to go skiing. So there's loads of nice snow and Swedish style downhill and cross-country skiing.
I do have a personal reason.
Yeah,
My grandfather was actually born in a little farm.
Yeah,
just
but
across
you
the
did
street.
skiing.
I did skiing, yes.
On the
Me
way
and Trasha
here.
did skiing on the way here.
I didn't do skiing. I just went here because it's really cozy. But we're not here to talk about today, right?
No.
Maybe we will come up to today, but we start way back.
We start from way back when. Let's out of the script, there is one additional question I need to ask before we even get to the script.
Okay.
Pex.
Yes.
Your name, is that given by your parents or is something you picked yourself?
No. The Swedish name I got was Per, P-E-R. But when I was 9 years old, I was told you need a new passport and you need to write your signature, your autograph on this passport. And being 9-year-old, we had like skrivstil, so learning to write in a nice way quite fast in school. So I knew how to combine the letters into one line instead of lifting the pen and writing individual letters. So the P, the E and the R became a P, E and an X in my quite lousy handwriting. So, and since that came into my passport, which kind of lasted for 10 years, my brothers are like, oh, that's Pex. So they started bullying me about being named Pex. And after doing that for 5 years, and all their friends called me Pex, and my parents started calling me Pex, and I just gave up. So that's the way my nickname Pex came about, which isn't. It wasn't my handle when I did demos on the Commodore 64, because when I started, it was kind of the illegal days where we were on the borderline between doing illegal stuff and doing creative, demo stuff. I never did anything illegal, so a couple of years later, I started combining my handles with my real name as well. And I think I was one of the first actually to have my real name in demo productions. So when we were doing Noise Tracker, that was Pex Mahoney Tuvesson, just because it was when my worlds merged together, when it suddenly was okay to be a scener even in the real world, and okay to be a real person even in the scene. So.
Yeah, well, how you approach the scene is different. For some, it's sort of like an avatar that you are using, and you're stepping into a role. For some, it's you who is there, and for some, it's a role you're playing in a sort of a macro role-playing game. So.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it was kind of you started out as. I started in the scene when I was 9, 10, 11 years old, and started meeting other scene guys when I was 12, 13. And then it was like a nickname to make sure that it sounded cool.
Yeah.
Being a Per Tuvesson, that wasn't really cool in the demo scene when you were 12. You were supposed to make an impression, so.
So let's go back to the really early days. And you are a few years younger than I, and then you had an ABC. No, you had a ZX80.
Well, it started with my father bringing home a PET machine in 1980 from his work. So he brought this huge machine that you could almost do nothing on, because when you turn it on, the screen was green, and you came to a basic prompt. And if you wanted to have fun, you needed to write the programs yourself, more or less. So then you started this line number 10 print hello, and 20 go to 10, and then you tried out those really early basic steps. I was way too young to understand anything back then, but my brother, 6 years older, was on the right exact year for doing those kinds of basic programs. And as a little brother, I just sat beside him and looked, and it looks cool. I don't understand anything, but that's probably okay.
And he was programming.
He did programming.
Sort of.
So he made games for ABC80 and sold by mail order.
Great.
So he was kind of a really advanced basic coder back then. And after that, he kind of, I want to buy a Spectrum ZX88, ZX80, and we bought that as do-it-yourself. So all the components came unsoldered, and you had to solder the motherboard yourself and assemble it yourself, and then suddenly you have a computer. So that's how we got our first computer, and I still didn't understand nada about programming, but eventually I got to I asked him, what are you doing there? What's that? How does that work? And what's an if case?
Knowledge starts with a question.
Yes, and he actually answered them, so I'm really thankful about that. And that time, computers were not common knowledge. Computers were strange. So when we were on a holiday in the Netherlands, I think we came into a warehouse they had like a department store with many levels, and suddenly my parents couldn't find me anymore. So they kind of lost me, and then they saw like 40 people standing in a corner in this big warehouse, and it seems like all the adults, all the people were looking at somebody at a computer, and that was me actually. So what I did in that store, I went up to a random computer. I don't know the model or the name, but I saw it had a basic prompt. So I made kind of a skiing game of reading the keyboard and print some ports that you were supposed to go across downhill skiing from, and people around it, because I was 8-9 years old, and people around me, is this the way computers is supposed to work? And they were just all struck about this small guy doing something really advanced with programming games live in a store where people weren't used to computers at all. But my parents found me and realized, oh, that's our kid over there having a show in front of people. It's kind of strange.
It had to be really safe for a number of people kind of watching over you. So
that's kind of strange. But then
we are still on when you had the ZX80 back home, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or are we going into the ABC80?
No, the ZX80 was the first one, and then we replaced that with a Spectrum 16K. Yeah. And then you started using BASIC for drawing like circles and lines and filling areas. But the fun started when my neighbor got a Commodore 64 and started playing games with it.
And now we're in 85.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's 85. Commodore 64 was launched in 82.
Let me sort of wedge in one thing. And so ABC80 is probably a computer that most international people would never have heard of, because it was produced by a Swedish company, Luxor.
In Motala, yes.
And they were doing TVs and all of like a really innovative kind of company, but they haven't survived as far as I know.
They were kind of on the level with Nokia, because Nokia was doing Wellington boots to start with and tires, and then suddenly they started doing phones. But Luxor didn't survive actually. They made like TVs and that kind of electronics, but their computer line ended with they started with the first color computers. ABC 800, etc. But I don't think you heard about it. It was based on the Z80 microprocessor. But then my neighbor got a C64. We started learning like how it worked by poking and changing games and getting cheat codes from magazines. And he was more interested in playing games, but I suddenly realized there must be a way of like programming this yourself. And how does that work? And then I started like finding out how games worked by loading them, running them, resetting, and then trying to figure out what the assembly code was and what it did. And yeah, so it was a personal journey into understanding how.
Did you code any Z80 on the because the ABC80 had a?
No,
Z80.
that was BASIC as well.
Yeah,
so I made a word processor program on ASP9 in BASIC.
Yeah,
you could kind of type and edit and save a page and print it, but that was all. But ABC80, you were relying on cartridges, expansion cartridges, to make it work. So it was a little cheating, but...
I started my career with ABC80 as well. I went to Vuxenskolan and I took a bus to Dalby, and then once a week we were programming BASIC on the ABC80. So
okay.
That's also my sort of starting point.
I thought actually we'd go out and take a break and get a hamburger and before they get cold, because it's like -5 degrees outside, sunny, but the food will actually not be good in 10 minutes.
And we have to say, if you find annoying background noises, that's Bite Draper's contribution to this.
We can move the camera, can't we? So down here somewhere, that's why we have this. It's just an emulator, but don't tell them it's not the real thing.
Cool.
Okay, see you in a bit.
So we're back after having a delicious burger.
Num num.
And we have one of those, well, if you are amongst people, there is always that guy that needs to be on the picture. Sorry about that.
Who's this time? Yeah.
So
where were we? We were starting with the scene in 1985.
Five-ish, and we are now moving into the real platform, the C64 here.
Yeah.
And you thought that you should eventually get a handle, because that's what everybody else had.
I met Richard Sandén, rest in peace. He passed away a couple of years ago. And we kind of said, let's form a group. Let's call it Commodore Cracking's Crew. Yes. And he said, like, I'm going to be SAP and you're going to be SAX, ZAX, and that's it. So we kind of formed a group, the two of us. It was kind of cool because he had friends and I just learned how to code. So he brought me other scene-related, like demos or crack intros and stuff like that. And I was kind of like, ooh, how did they do this? And I wanted to try it out myself. So I started coding.
And now we're actually like on assembler level as well.
Absolutely. So it was assembly language when I was like 10, 11 years old. Started doing my first, like ripping Rob Hubbard music and putting a scroll text to it and making perhaps a new font.
Yeah, but I mean, those were the days. That was an impressive thing to do back then. It wasn't obvious that you were supposed to be able to do that. So
no, it was kind of like, well, this is a computer. We don't know what we use it for, but could be called art. I mean, some people say like, this is really art, and some people say, no, it's just computers, shut up. Yeah. But what we do see is like people making serious stuff about it, like, well, this book, for instance. Yeah. It's about pixel art. It's about, merging this computer graphics with, really serious ways of doing. Really nice book, a very nice series of books by Klaus, sitting over there somewhere.
Klaus is here.
But enough of that. But it's a really nice book, if you like pixel art, that is. And the demo scene is full of it.
Yeah.
But I never did any. The graphics that I did was really, really ugly. But that changed. So when Richard Sandén, who later became Conan in the Defiers, we made a new group. Yeah. And then we brought in graphicians, people doing graphics. And so we had Paul and called Nova, just doing an image of a castle, and then I could do the scroll text and the linking and the code, and suddenly we had a demo in the FairLight meetings in 1986, 7. I don't know when it was.
Looking at the releases, there were quite a few of those music rips. You had a series of stuff, very organized, like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You.
Yeah, but you did one, and then I can make another one and another one, and I never tried to make the perfect demo. What I did try was to do another demo. So don't make it perfect the first time, but make another one that will be slightly better, and then make another one that will be slightly better. And when you've done that for 20, 30 years, suddenly you're an expert in stuff. But never try
gradual improvement. So
absolutely. So that was how I tried to do it.
And one of those series was Sound Demos with a Z.
Yes.
There was a 2, 3, 4, and 5, but I haven't been able to locate the number 1.
No, I think it's lost somewhere. I must have done it, but I mean, if you realized, I was writing assembly code more or less by hand, writing it with a disassembly in memory, and I didn't have a disk. I didn't have disks to store it on, so I used cassette player of Commodore 64 to actually store my demos. So it's probably on a cassette tape somewhere in my parents' basement or something. But I haven't.
In a modern environment, when you have like iteration, you can make a small patch and you can just run it and run it and run it.
No. So what I did, I started an interrupt of the C64, and the demo was running while I was coding assembly code in memory. So I needed to make sure that every line of assembly code that I entered wouldn't crash the computer, because then I kind of had to reset it, go back, find my place again, and start the interrupts. It was a really nice environment because you had instant feedback of what you were coding, but it's a really lousy environment because if you want to overwrite an opcode with a new opcode, you needed to make sure that it's 3 bytes and you overwrite it with another 3-byte opcode. Otherwise you will have garbage in memory and the processor would crash. So.
We do encourage that you test this, but don't make it your like normal development environment.
It's like trying to make a bike while riding it. So, I'm gonna just switch the wheels, and if I make the wrong turn somewhere, you're just gonna end up with garbage.
So, and looking through the other releases here, you were actually doing sideboard stuff, which is, I'm not saying first, but really early.
Yeah, absolutely. But I didn't invent it, of course. I mean, I saw I guess it was a Tutankhamon Escos thing from 1001 Crew or whatever. And it was like, ooh, they do something that's nobody else have done. And it kind of triggers me. I mean, I'm a person who wants to do something that hasn't been done before. I don't make 100 demos that are like I'm trying to, I want to do something new. I want to do something that hasn't been done before. Which makes it harder now, actually, because now we have...
Yeah, but the bar is raised.
Yeah, the bar is ridiculously high these days. So making a demo part today with modern tools takes quite a long time.
The really crappy part is that others also have access to modern tools, which is sort of...
No, it's not a crappy. I mean, it's just the
if you want to be successful in your competition, it's more difficult if they also know the trick.
Yeah, that's true. But that was getting graphics, making demos with graphics and ripped music still. It was still ripped music. And then making kind of a press space to get the next part and making demos with many parts.
Yeah, that was how a demo was supposed to be.
Absolutely.
There was no thematic running in sync with the music and evolving over time. That was before that. Press.
We did this before that time. But Furland was actually the party where I met Cactus, Anders Backerman. We kind of shared the extension cord. So when I was leaving and going home from that party, I kind of, I need to unplug my extension cord because I need to go home. And I just said like, it's probably okay. Boom! And then I shut off his computer completely. With stuff he didn't say. But it turned out pretty well. We started talking after that. Either I was a devil or really nice, I don't know, but we kept talking. And we lived like, what is it, 45 minutes by car. And my parents actually had to drive me to his place every now and then. And
were you based in Lund at the time?
Yeah, I lived in Staffanstorp, which is just close south of Lund. And Cactus was living in Rydebäck. Rå. I should never mix those up. Rå, south of Helsingborg. And that was 45-minute drive. And it wasn't really possible to go by train or buses, because in order to go from Staffanstorp to Rå, I needed to take a bus, then to Lund, take a train to Helsingborg, then take another bus, a local bus, and then walk. And it was kind of, for me, being 14 years old at the time, or 13, I don't know. You don't really travel with trains and buses just like that. Carrying Commodore 64 stuff like a monitor and computer and...
we're going to parties with all those stuff. That was dreadful.
But the nice thing about Cactus is he's like 2 years older, like you, and are you 2 years old? I don't know.
I think I'm even older than that.
Even older, but the nice thing about that...
See the grayish?
See how smooth skin. No. The nice thing about him was that he was slightly older and slightly more mature when it comes to mathematics and doing stuff the right way, and he had older friends as well, which led to meeting people that could do music and could do other stuff. And back then, 1986, 87, sorry, if you wanted music in your demo, you actually were forced to make a new music routine or write the player yourself, or even the editor. And we started that actually in 1986. I think I wrote my first music program.
And this is still on the 64 then?
On the 64. And then a year later I found Chris Julsbeck's sound monitor, and I kind of rewrote that to be able to play samples with it as well. So I added a sample playing skills of having 2 sample channels together with 3 SID channels.
I thought that was sort of the thing with Chris Hulsbeck's routine, that he could do samples, but...
No. That came later, and actually most of the
sound monitor, was his development. Sound monitor with samples was his development, but you took the bass part and did samples?
No. The sound monitor was SID only, as it was presenter in the 64 magazine, where you had to type it in data sets and pokes in BASIC to be able to run it. I think it was 12 pages of numbers you had to enter, crazy. But that was SID only, and what I did was add samples as well. I think, of course, he's very well known for having samples in his SID songs as well, but that was later, after Sound Monitor. And then, of course, he did the Amiga stuff and doing multi-channel Amiga stuff, but he didn't program that himself, actually. So he had help in making the editors.
So out of my notes here, we're sort of in the end of Commodore Cracking Crew, and there was this 10 minutes Hubbard tune mix.
Oh, yeah.
What was that? Was that like a medley that you did, or
what I did
you played
was
them sequentially, or?
No, I mean Hubbard made loads of nice tunes, and they were kind of relocated in memory differently. So you could like load a couple of them in memory at the same time. And I just got the idea of what about making a 10-minute Rob Hubbard medley. But I actually did change the SID has 3 channels, so I switched which patterns it played and kind of remixed every song to be like, well, I think there was 12 songs or something, so I remixed every song to be like 40 seconds and then tried to make the transitions from one song to the next as interesting as possible. So that was my first remix of Commodore 64 music by doing it in assembly code, more or less, editing the patterns.
I'd say that's a very kind of small segment. Not many people do that. I can't say that I've seen a lot of those.
No, it's kind of, it always gets worse, because if you have a musician that's spent a lot of time developing his own algorithms, codes and players, and then composing music for it, they kind of do it quite well. I mean, otherwise Rob Hubbard wouldn't be Sir Rob Hubbard and have the status of being really well known. I mean, he's a brilliant guy. And then you like an elephant in a porcelain shop. You just barge in and say like, oh, I'm gonna make this song better. And you don't have his tools, you can't assemble it, it's kind of fixed in the length, and it's always gonna get worse. But I tried to do reducing the length of the songs and finding out which patterns had the interesting parts of the theme that you will recognize.
Well, I tend to think that like standing on the shoulder of giants, that you are doing taking the basis of what somebody else did and you just make it a little different, so you sort of inherit. I think that's one of my strongest arguments against extensive copyright, that derivative work needs to be available, taking somebody's kind of IP and then doing it with a twist and then adding to that.
But yeah, that's true. I mean,
and we turned politics now.
But
that
that's
was
why
unintentional.
I don't have a strong opinion on that, and I shouldn't say too much. But in the demo scene, what you do, you kind of look at what others have done, and then you try to improve it. But you don't steal their code, you don't copy their graphics or music. You kind of say, "Ooh, that's nice. Can I improve that somehow?" And if you do that long enough, then you kind of come to a good enough level of inventing your own stuff, I would say.
So we are now like at the end of or the latter part of 1987, and suddenly in a CCC super demo, there was a new guy in town. It was Mahoney of Defiers that did the last part. So you were Zach in the first part of the demo, and then you became sort of Mahoney of Defiers in the last one.
Yeah, what happened was that I kind of wanted to collaborate with Cactus, and we needed people doing music and graphics and tried to make a new group.
Yeah.
So I changed my name to Mahoney because Rickard Sandén said like, well, we need a new name for you, and it's from the Police Academy movies. And then he changed name to Conan of Defiers, and Defiers became, I mean, a larger group than we intended, because we were 4 people when we started. And then, I mean, Celebandil of FairLight was part of Defiers, and Cactus were part of Defiers, and Mogwai, and well, a lot of nice people. Rickard Sandén's younger brother, Peter Sandén, Yodel King of Defiers.
Who is also Panda, right?
Yes, Panda of Defiers. So he had multiple
That has
handles.
been confusing for me. So Panda, Yodel King, Dark Helmet, who is now known as Fix. Was
Yeah,
also in?
I never allowed him to be part of Defiers, but he joined Defiers afterwards.
So when you left, he could join. Okay,
absolutely.
Okay.
And
Jabba, who
yeah.
then joined Light.
Yeah,
so.
Jabba, Stefan Burström, absolutely. And he did the eyebrows web browser, kind of a Netscape clone for Amiga later. But
and Cactus was the Dark Overlord.
When I met Cactus, he's like, "Hello, I'm the Dark Overlord." And I said, "No, you're not. We need to change that." So we came up with Cactus. Actually, I don't know who came up with it. I claim it's me, but he claims it just came out of thin air. I don't know.
So there needs to be a story. That's a sort of a strange handle as well.
No, Cactus is just Cactus in Swedish, and I had switched to Mahoney, so we need something that fits nicely along it. What we're not really agree on is if it's Cactus and Mahoney and Cactus. Yeah. Who should be the first one?
Well, regardless of which, you are one of the like dynamic duos, the Stoten Tim and Ian and Mick and Rat and Ben, and there are a few of those, but.
Well, what happened was that I'm a person that never do anything unless I know that it's going to be used somewhere.
No.
And he's a person that does a lot, but he never releases it. So when we got together, I like say, that's nice, it's done, let's release it. And when I did something, it's like, okay, I need some help. Can you help me here? Can we do this better? How does this look like? So we kind of helped improving each other's demos, and then suddenly we just say like, let's write our names together in everything we do, and that's just how it became. And together we were kind of recruited, or tried to be recruited in various groups. So we were recruited into Triad until I got to know that we actually became members of Triad, and I said, no way. But that was the time where you used to call each other in the middle of the night using illegal Visa cards and carding. And my parents, when they woke up 2 o'clock in the morning and said, there's a phone call for you, wake me up. Oh, and I got to talk to Ian and Mick on a call somewhere routed through the US. And of course it was nice, but I realized being a schoolboy of 14 years old, I realized that's not my life really. So Triad was kind of scary. I didn't want to.
They are everything but scary today, so they're humble really nice. Humble and nice.
Look over there, they're really the saint over here. He's supposed to be talking now, but he doesn't dare because we're having this interview. So. Sorry, to Blomman, you do that later. But that's.
Let's see if there is anything here.
But we did stuff with FairLight. We did stuff with Triad and North Star and Triumph and whatever. But it was always the two of us actually, because we just went along very well together.
Looking at sort of highlights here, so we've the color demo where you blend two colors that sit next to one another. That was sort of one of the things you did, and like, whoa!
Nice. We can have 137 colors on the Commodore 64, and it's a trick. It doesn't work anymore because you need a CRT TV with a PAL standard, The thing is that when you've read about how it works, it's like, okay, so the color of a pixel is actually not the color of the pixel that the TV gets, but it's actually the average of the color of the pixel that you have on this row and on the row above. So it's, and why the heck would you like to do that on a TV? And it's just because how the color information is encoded in the analog video signal.
And this is only PAL?
This is only PAL, because you have a high frequency start, which then is phase locked at the start of every line, and then the color of that pixel is the phase shift from that oscillation in the start of the line. But to make that as good as possible, because it was kind of unstable, you kind of inverted the phase on every line and made sure that, well, if we just average it, the colors will be more stable, and that's just the TV standard of how it works. But making a demo is trying to make the best of the hardware that you have. And since we had those, I mean, this was the hardware, this is the setup, okay, let's optimize it now. And it looks crap on an emulator, it looks crap on a new LCD TV, because alternating colors on every other line just looks weird.
One thing I'd like to add here, so if you didn't get that, then that proves that you are less smart now than Pex was when he was 14, just so you know.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, but I'm always been the one of trying to, oh, that looks nice.
Yeah.
How can I use this or abuse it to make something look nicer, make it better? And that's what the demo sim is about, of course.
Fiddling, trying, learning, exploring,
Absolutely.
The exploration.
And then come the shocking news that my friend would just say, I'm selling my Commodore 64.
Yeah.
And I said, why? We were having so much fun. He said, no, I'm just buying an Amiga instead.
Okay.
And that was a completely different computer. It had a new CPU, new chips, new monitors, new sound chips, and it was like, ooh, do I need to buy one as well? And I said, no, I don't have the money, so you go ahead. So he bought an Amiga.
Who, was this Cactus or?
Cactus.
Yeah.
Bought an Amiga. He bought also the hardware reference manual. That was kind of everything you needed to program the computer and make sure that you could do visuals and graphics as well. And then we met in my parents' summer house, and he brought his Amiga. I still had my Commodore 64, and he said, okay, let's start this weekend by you reading these books. And he just gave me a pile of the 4 reference manuals. And it was kind of difficult, but I started, and I started to realize that, okay, it's not that difficult actually. And I started, okay, I will start coding. And he already had the assembly code and the setup. And I just said, okay, I pushed him away, said, you move, I try.
Yeah.
And it was like during that weekend we made the first demo part actually.
Yeah.
And it was released in the Northstar FairLight Mega Demo 3 as the blue part,
Yes.
I think. And that was 14 days after I got my Amiga, that part was kind of finished.
I had my friend Martin Kvist, who was actually a classmate of your brother.
Ooh, okay.
So the story I heard at the time, because it became sort of an urban legend, so I heard 14 hours.
Yeah, the demo part was finalized 14 hours after I got this pile of books. So, but the release, I mean, when we said like, okay, it's done now.
So 14 hours
14
is still
hours
valid.
was still valid, but we actually did music, and that took more than 14 hours to make the music in Soundtracker in one of the versions.
We are now getting into Amiga, but let's just squeeze
sorry.
out the last few things about C64. So the Furulund demos.
Okay.
Those are the Furulund parties. We met there, and
absolutely.
very nice place by Kim Landreth.
He was kind of a classmate, not really classmate, one year older than me. I met him at Polhemskolan. So he was kind of walking around saying, oh, we're going to have this nice meeting, you're coming, of course. Okay. That's how I ended up going to Furulund.
Yeah, it was a really cool party. To be more like this, we're a little bit bigger than this,
it was
but
bigger
still,
than this. And it's kind of an open. It was a place where people go dancing, so it was kind of an open area with a dance floor where you were sitting around it, looking down.
A few of the things we remember from, there were multiple events, but the ones I was visiting was Uga Dunk was there, and they were burning. There was like they were older than most of us, right? They were university students from somewhere up
Absolutely.
north.
So they had
somewhere.
money and hardware and equipment, and a funny state of mind saying like, yeah, we don't respect this. They kind of made Atari ST computers later that they kind of had like, they want to clean their shoes with them. So it was kind of, you clean your shoes here, and they had an Atari ST which you were supposed to
but it added important learnings. One of the things I know because of this is if you burn a Sinclair Spectrum, it's actually kind of green. The flames are green. That's important knowledge.
Highly toxic, I guess.
Probably, absolutely so.
No, but I mean, the scene has been full of people, and back then, I mean, you could have thousands of people in a school during a weekend in Eskilstuna. It was kind of, if you arrange it, people will come. So that was on the peak of the scene when it comes to number of people. And then the people that are left, they're actually still here.
Pretty much all of them are still around,
No, but a few of them are here, and those that are here have some kind of social skills, which not everyone had back then. We also have some kind of diagnosis, I would guess. All of us being able to.
We are nicely retarded, so.
You could. Whatever.
So Ugaduink was one of the things, but there was also Kvällsposten, the local magazine, was there interviewing Viper, and
it wasn't so local. I think Kvällsposten was kind of south of Sweden at least.
Okay, well, that part of the country, most newspapers were like
absolutely
local to a region, but they were there and they interviewed Viper, who was a member of FairLight, and he referenced the lamers, which the journalist interpreted as laymen, those law-abiding citizens. They are measly characters. No,
kind of wrong, but that's journalism for you.
For
Everything
sure.
you know about in papers are kind of wrong, and then you just extrapolate.
So, and the fire party in Staffanstorp, that was much later. That was like 2 years later, and you weren't a member of the Fires at the time, right? Or you were just hanging out with them?
No, in those STEM parties we were kind of doing the sounds of GNOME, the music discs, the His Master's Noise on Amiga. So that was me and Cactus and Northstar, but of course I was good friends with people in the Fires, so I helped out a little of making sure that everyone was there nicely and kind of transported people, helped out with. I didn't have a driver's license then, but
that was in Staffanstorp, so
absolutely, it was my hometown anyway. So it's kind of strange. I mean, I wasn't a computer nerd 100% then, because I was also competing in swimming.
Right?
So I left that party and said like, sorry, I need to go, and then I took went by friends to Helsingborg, and I competed in swimming during the day, and then after we were done, I kind of went back to the party and said like, sorry, I just had to take a break, and then back to with the computer again. And so I was kind of a mixed computer nerd and sports nerd at the same time.
And also musician, like, so there are two aspects more of the C64 period. The exact war.
You need to write something in scroll text, right? And if you don't have anything to write, you start making fun of people. So I made a greeting scroller where I just took people's names and just tweaked them a little, humoristically, I thought, back then. And only one group kind of reacted to that, and that was Xack. And they kind of started like writing bad things, or as I thought, bad things about me and my friends and what I did and what people did. And we just kind of went on with it.
Yeah, that sort of spiraled out of control from a rather polite joke, like it went nuclear.
Yeah, depends on how you look at it. But people reading it thought like, ooh, this is yummy.
Yeah.
And then they were kind of like, I don't care, I can write whatever I want. It was still nice, I would say. I mean, it was just, we're gonna win the demo competition, you suck. And,
that was rather normal. That was kind of stepping on others to look bigger than you are. That has been a thing that humans could have. They have been doing throughout
but
history.
no harm done. I mean, when I started on Amiga, I said like, okay, it's done. I don't need this anymore. And of course, I met Knatter, Björn Fogelberg, a couple of times, having a beer, and he's a really nice guy. So I mean, that's it was fun.
It was very. They are kind of difficult people to be angry with. So there are a number of people in your world that you find it very difficult to get along with, but none of them are here. So it's including Knatter, even if it's not here, I would find it very difficult to not get along with him. So
no, absolutely.
So and this getting to this is sort of a tricky question. So when I think of you, I think of a rather serious guy taking things rather serious and possibly with a little joking twist.
Okay.
And then we have the CP demo, which is like anything but politically correct. There is no way you can fit that in a politically correct context.
No, it's kind of a... I'm not going to defend it somehow, but if you want to make something crazy, why don't use crazy people? And my relative, I mean, I have a relative that actually was born with cerebral palsy, and she lived until she was 26, and a really nice person. You can't communicate at all with that person, and I mean, she was kind of difficult to find out if she was having a good time or not, because I couldn't read the signs. But one day I brought a cassette player with my favorite music on it. It was like Smurf hits. So it was people singing in very high-pitched voices. And it's kind of a nuisance to listen to, but she enjoyed that very much. And her parents were like, what kind of music is that? We just need that. And then she listened for the rest of her life, actually. Another 15 years she was listening to Smurf hits and really enjoyed it. But somehow that came through. So there was no harm intended in at all calling it.
Those were different times as well. So
and then we kind of started sampling stuff. So we kind of, here's a microphone, say something crazy. And I did that with Parrot of Defiance. He's like, oh! And together we kind of made crazy samples. And that turned out into drawing ugly koala pictures about...
Yeah, because that is the other thing that doesn't really fit, that kind of purposely ugly stuff.
Yeah, but I've never been a graphician, and all Mahoney and Cactus, I mean, graphics is kind of really ugly, unless we kind of got someone else to do it, like Uno from Scopex, who did the graphics for his Master's Noise, and then suddenly it was like, whoa, now that's really cool. But without that, it's really, I mean, we're just coders actually. So, hey, Klaus. You want to be on the show? No.
Klaus is
I need
drying his ink.
No. Ooh.
Ah, so is this your book?
No, it isn't. But he signed the book, so.
Excellent.
I know what it is, but it's actually the prize for winning the graphics competition tonight.
Ah,
so
okay.
He signed the book for the winner.
Need to twist it a little bit more. Yeah, this is live almost. Well, we don't want to broadcast it.
I feel kind of alive.
Yeah, it feels live.
But hey, you had lots of materials here.
Yes.
So let's continue.
Dimension X and Urk. What is that? That was. There is a reference. I read CSDB. That's my sort of the exploration I do before here. So
okay.
There is some sort of reference to this. Is this something you know or
no,
aware of? Yeah, let's skip that.
I need to figure it out. He's talking about stuff that happened 25 years ago.
It's okay to have a bit of a fuss when it comes to remembrance of those things. And sort of the Mahoney Cactus Mahoney, the duo was sort of formed in '88. So can we establish that, or does it make sense?
I met him '87. And then we kind of like, let's start doing things together. And we did. We did Noise Tracker together, for instance, which many people used, of course. And on the Amiga demos, we were kind of early in making demos. Demos at Furulund Party, where it was the first time I saw a demo on Amiga. It was kind of a logo, perhaps a scroll text, and then a looped sample of 7 seconds. that kind of was repeating.
That's what you
on
could
and on
fit
again.
in memory. So.
That's what you could fit in memory, and with quite little programming skills. That was kind of we made a scroll text, and that's it. And then we were kind of the early adopters of trying to make demos on the Amiga. And then it was kind of like, yeah, whatever you do, you're the first one to do. And in the North Star Mega demo, we kind of say, oh, what about making a 3D perspective graphics where you kind of use the copper to change the colors of an image? And what about making scrolls everywhere? Let's split them and let's make another one. Oh, that we can have another one here. And so it was
and you had the
easy.
massive 7 megahertz to play with, going from C64. It's so much more, but there are a number of additional bits that you need to shift, right? So
no, the Amiga isn't really faster than the Commodore 64, but it had all these support chips that could make nicer graphics and higher resolution. And but then again, I mean, the newer Amiga demos, now I'm jumping ahead like 4 or 5 years. After 4 or 5 years of this, exploring where the limits are about the machine in compute power, then we started to see the Melon demos with design and music and like a script and like a storytelling and stuff that we never cared about actually. So we made one part and the scroller had some nice text about what we were doing right now, kind of a blog way of living.
I mean, say the FairLight North Star Mega Demo 3, there are a lot of space presses to get to the end of that. So
absolutely, and it crashes. I think on one
does?
of the discs there was a bad version on the internet that was kind of didn't work on all hardware.
Okay.
I think it was patched, but
I think the YouTube video doesn't crash, so you can watch the YouTube video.
YouTube is crap, and the reason why YouTube is crap is that all these demos are 50 hertz machines, and then you kind of have this 50 hertz. Well, if you're lucky, you have a 50 hertz capture of that, but then you're trying to look at it on your 60 hertz laptop screen, and it's just it's
awful. Even worse than the frame rate of the OBS that we're running now. So
yeah, exactly.
All right. Triumph 2001 and the demo stuff like Gnarp.
Yeah, that's Commodore 64 again. Yeah, it was kind of a multi-part one-filer demos.
Yeah.
So we made a demo and then we crunched it and then we put it as part of another demo and we crunched that and put it as part in another demo.
And as long as there was memory left, you could add more
you
demo
can always
part.
add a new demo part on it. So it was kind of programmed from the last part first and then the first part.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a mega demo in one part. Just nice people.
DigiMonitor was one of the releases here on the Triumph as well.
Yeah, that was the samples with Chris Julspec sound monitor. And
Super Monitor with a Z again.
yeah, it's the same thing, I think.
Is that the same thing?
Yeah, DigiMonitor and Super Monitor is exactly the same.
And then Skruv, which is screw.
Skruv and Gnarp, they were kind of demos that did loading in between parts. So it was the first time we kind of had loading the next part from disk. The linking is really ugly with today's standards because when you press space, you kind of you had the blue and the light blue.
You started Pink
border.
Floyd fast loader, and that loaded the next part.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
so
that.
we had a fast loader, but I mean the linking was kind of not really a nice transition from one part to the next, unless it happened by accident. And it did in one part. It was really nice. It was just a black screen, but a fade out from one loading, and then suddenly the next part comes without glitches.
When I think about what you did then, I tend to think of really large scrollers, stuff like Escos, but with scrollers.
Yeah, but we had to try of making a larger one, an even larger one, and make a scroller that fills the whole screen. And then, I mean, what I did with my TV back then was I could adjust the vertical sync, so I could see the blackout that normally is outside of the border by tuning the TV so I could have it in the middle of the screen. And then I could try to understand where these 312 raster lines that you have on the screen, how far you could use it to the top and to the bottom. So I had a scroller that I never managed to play any music while it was scrolling because it was completely busy with opening the side border and the borders. But today I would of course manage to have music as well
during the delay loops.
No, you just have to split the music routine into segments that's every now and then would open the side border to the side and then continue with computing the music. So.
The key word here is just putting an emphasis on how easy it really is.
No, it takes a while. Or you do as people have done here, write a generator that mixes the code that needs to be stable to the raster, and then code that's actually going to do something useful.
You can actually take a look at one of the previous episodes where I'm explaining ESCOs, which is sort of the key of that big scroller.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just fooling the hardware to do stuff that it wasn't intended to.
Which is the coolest thing there is. That's sort of the coolest thing with the C64.
The thing with the C64 and why people over there or here is still making demos for it is that it contains a number of bugs or shortcuts that they did in the hardware. And they did those to save money mostly. And that's why we have unintended opcodes for the CPU. That's why we can open the side border or reuse sprites or change the graphics mode to actually more or less do stuff that the machine initially wasn't thought capable of doing, which made the C64 a puzzle that you can solve many times and still have fun. While the Amiga computer that was the successor of that one contained fewer of these because these custom chips kind of already pushed the limits of the memory system and they were very much defined in their behavior, and that made them boring. And then, of course, if you have unlimited computers that came after that, I mean, I have a really downturn. I left the demo scene in 1991, and that was when I saw that, okay, now we have computers that can play full screen encoded videos. And that's when I thought, well, the demo scene is dead. There's nothing else to do because now you can just pre-render it with any hardware, frame by frame, and then you display your nice graphics. Just like a video.
It was about that time we got Global Trash and those. That was
absolutely.
like more like '93, I guess. But where the demo was actually done on a bigger machine, and they submitted a video to the compos rather than running it on a native machine.
Of course, that was a separate compo entry or category, but those wild demos were kind of like, okay, I don't have anything new to add to having rendered video,
So let's dive into the Amiga part. I know a number of people have been waiting for the Amiga part. I have no idea why you should scream like that, but you're supposed to do that, and I'm just doing what I'm told here. So the groups, I mean, Cactus and Mahoney was sort of a group itself, and then you lended your resources to contribute to others, right? Because as I understand, you were never a member of FairLight, you were never a member of North Star, but North Star was sort of based in Helsingborg.
Yeah, I would say I was a member of North Star, but I was too young to drink beer, so I wasn't really part of the inner gang of those.
Featers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Johan Malm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we had, Jasse and Atom and a lot of nice people there. And they did commercial stuff on the Amiga as well. Yeah. I mean, they did the display infotainment system on the ferries going to Helsingør, for instance, and games, absolutely.
Toddler and what have you not.
Absolutely. So they did lots of cool stuff.
Yeah, that's a separate episode, I guess. So, North Star Mega Demo or FairLight North Star Mega Demo 3 that was your sort of main demo on the Amiga?
Yeah, we did a number of demos and we just collected them together with, the other parts in the Mega Demo. But I don't know, it was a really nice demo just because of it had a loader, it had a setup, and there were a lot of inventions in how to treat the graphic chips and stuff like that. So it was kind of inventive, I don't know.
Yeah.
Also crazy, suddenly we could do music with samples and just making a new kind of experience for everyone watching it and listening to it.
And we've already kind of processed this, the blue thing, if it was 14 days or 14 hours. But so 14 hours was the actual production, 14 days was before it was released. So.
Yeah, before we said it's done.
Sound of Gnomes.
Yeah, that was music discs. And it started out with, let's make some more music. I did it with Glue Master, Lars Malmborg, and Cactus and me, and another common friend of mine, Specs on it.
Glue Master, was that the guy with the propeller cap, right?
Yes, absolutely. He moved to Australia, so he's in Australia right now.
Okay.
And Specs on passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately. But we just made loads of songs, and we're gonna use these instruments, and we do songs, and let's like fit 50 of them on one disc, and just make sure that there's a long playlist, and you can like play it on repeat and whatever. So, kind of a way of making a demo that you could run for an hour or something.
So there are so many hidden features of this. I read your the summary of all the features that are there, but I never sort of got the point of hidden. I'd like to expose what I've written. I don't want people to risk missing it.
But this thing here is like, okay, we have this graphical user interface with a bouncing mouse pointer, and people are going to be listening to these songs for hours. So just let's give them something to play around with while they're doing it, and if they unintentionally...
Food for the exploration.
Yeah, absolutely. So then suddenly you have a time, just say minutes and seconds, and we're going to have a list of songs, and then kind of a scroller and a scroller and a scroller and a scroller that belongs to the song you're playing, so you have actually 1 hour of reading if you would like to. And so those hidden features was like kind of a, we can fit something here. What happens if we click the train that passes by, and what happens if we type this on the keyboard?
I have 2 specific questions.
Yeah.
This, first of all, when you type Yankee, it resets. And there was a guy called Yankee, so there needs to be a connection with this guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He did a bad thing.
He was Danish, was he?
No, he did a bad thing, Mikke, and I haven't really forgiven you yet, because you stole our discs while we were at a party. So when we were in Kristianstad and had an almost finished mega demo in our disc box, and we went outside and taking pizza salad and putting explosives in it, and and yogurt and putting explosives in it, and just had fun with fireworks. You copied one of our not ready demos and spread it to people. And so I was kind of
you don't do that.
No, you don't do that. So what happens was that, okay, let's make something stupid about him.
Yeah.
So we just said like, okay, if you type that in our demo, it's just gonna reset and die. So
that's a fair.
So
raw, brutal, but within the sort of the realm of the scene. So not going to like physically abuse somebody. That was a good thing. So, but the other thing is, there is a fascination around trains, because when I look through the hidden part things you've done,
there are trains everywhere.
There are quite a few trains, right?
And you know why? They're so easy to draw. I mean, if you want to draw a train, you can do a rectangle like this, and then 4 circles down there, and you have an engine. And then if you want to do wagons, it's another rectangle.
Is that you who have done those?
Yes, absolutely. So it's kind of an icon that's easy to recognize, and you can make them small and you still recognize them, or you can make them larger. It's like the fish in the Hallonsaft demo, where the fish is also really nice to have in demos because they're kind of static. A fish that is swimming that you see from the side can just be a static image that you move. There's not many things that you can move to the side without animating them. It's like cars, trains, and fish.
I wanted just to get to the point that some of your productions are actually trained.
Ooh.
Okay.
Bad pun. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're getting to one of your sort of key releases of all times, Noise Tracker 1.1.
Yeah. There was a 1.0, but it had a really stupid bug in it. Yeah. So just a couple of hours after we released it, just like, there's another one, and please remove the old one. But the Noise Tracker was me trying to make a music program that I liked, because we had the Sound Tracker, which was excellent. Custom Obaski, absolutely. And then you had a number of iterations, not many, but a few iterations. And there was one that I really hated, and that was a music program with a scroller on the screen. Because if I'm in the mood of making music, I don't want to sit reading the stupid text that goes repeating. So my solution to that one was first to put some tape on the screen to cover it. So I didn't want to see it, so I just put freeze tape on top of it.
I fully understand that. So.
And that's a way of not seeing it. And then I can probably remove this by disassembling the whole program and then removing the scroller, and then I have my music program without the scroller. And after doing this disassemblation and then assemble it again and removing the scroller, it's just like, oh, there are a couple of bugs in this that I wanted to take away. There was one really stupid bug that every fourth, there was this possibility or a risk of 25% of the program just crashing whenever you saved your module. And that's like a no. So whenever you,
massive no.
I've done this, I'm really happy with this song, and this, like 3 times out of 4 it works when you save it, and 1 time out of 4 it just dies on you. And I fixed that bug. So like, well, this is worthy actually of a release. But I could, of course, add some more features to it.
Of course.
And we did. So that was Noise Tracker 1.1.
And Castor Nobaski was also releasing it and then was totally gone from the face of the earth. He wasn't really involved in the program anymore, and there was no interest in developing it from his side.
No, I mean, it was released from a software house called EAS in Germany. So it was a sold product. I don't know how many they sold, but when we had done Sound Tracker or Noise Tracker, they actually contacted us with a letter and signed like, "Ooh, you've done a nice version of our music program. Could we just sell it for you?"
Yeah.
And my Cactus father and they started like negotiating about how it should be done. We did Noise Tracker 2.0 with like a copyright notice of copyright EAS and everything. But in the end, they didn't sell it because the company went, I think, bankrupt or at least closed down before they actually started producing boxes or stuff like that. Okay, but I do have an original Sound Tracker box with the discs in and the manual and everything from Castor Nobaski, and I've heard it's quite a rarity to have one of these.
Don't sell that. So the 1.1 says North Star and Silence.
Ooh. Yeah, that's true. North Star and Silence. Silence were Danish, and Helsingborg and Helsingør is quite close. So they were just having parties together. And since we kind of were part of North Star, and North Star said like, well, we are friends in Silence, let's collaborate. We just wrote that in the notes going with the release. So.
Well, I mean, Danish, a large portion of them were actually Swedish, because eventually a number of them went on to form Digital Illusion,
absolutely.
which became DICE, which were bought by Electronic Arts.
Oh, Jesper Kiel, was he part of Silence? Or,
I think, Kid Valle, they were both.
Yeah, exactly. I met them back then, and we were trying to communicate.
In Danish?
No, I said, you can talk Danish, it's perfectly okay, and we talked Swedish, but eventually it was just English everywhere. So, but it was kind of like, oh yes, but can I borrow one of your samples? I want to do music. So the only collaboration we had was that I nicked some of his samples for my songs. And
we are both from the very south of Sweden, so and that is very close to Denmark. So most of the Scanians understand Danish. The issue is that Danes don't really understand our version of Swedish.
No. So I've been brought up with Danish children's programs. So I mean, I watched Danish television when I was a kid, so I understand Danish. I don't speak it, but it didn't work the other way around. And he's talking really fast, so it was kind of difficult to understand.
It also depends on where in Denmark they're from. If they are from like the Copenhagen area, that's typically fair. But if they are from Jutland, the very south of Jutland, that's very inbred kind of. Sorry, Danes, but we don't do Jutlandish Danish.
Yeah, Blomma. Come. Hey, are you waiting for us to finish?
Yes.
Yes. Shall we finish now? Take a break so you can do your thing.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so he's going to be entertaining us, and we're kind of in the way, so we'll take a break now. Don't go anywhere because you're not taking a break. We'll be here a couple of seconds. Yeah. We just have a little pause and you do the subscribe and like and all of that shit. People don't do that anymore. Well, They do.
We do have 70% of our watches being from subscribers, so a lot of you actually do. So
Okay.
good work.
Good work.
See you in a few minutes or
Bye.
seconds in your time. Look really nice.
We had a nice break. We listened to Two Flower of Triad.
Yes.
Talking about the Laxities player and it was, right?
Something about, what was that? The hard
restart. It's the delicate options or bugs in the SID chip and how to treat it and how musicians use it as a trademark sound actually to make exploit these bugs in the SID chip to make their music being unique. So it was really demo sense stuff as well in the music players.
So normally you would think that most of the tricks you can do on the C64 are very VIC related, but no. There are lots of things you can do with SID. It's not too obvious for a number of us, but...
No, but I've done quite a lot of SID research actually,
of course
trying to figure out how this SID chip works. But that is kind of modern stuff. I mean, now we're into 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 10 years ago. But maybe we can skip that for later or for in 20 minutes, I don't know.
We are sort of closing the first phase of Mahoney here by... I just wanted to add the fact that my own personal contribution to Cactus Mahoney was the fact that Cactus machine actually broke down, and I worked in the shop where he handed it in for service. So I personally ensured that was the first in line that the engineers would do the second day. So his machine was actually fixed really, really fast. Yeah.
But you never fixed the machines.
No.
You were just in the counter and...
Yes and no. The C64s, normally people will come in with a tape recorder saying this one is dead.
Yeah.
And the really strange thing about the C64 is that when the fuse is dead on the 64, the machine works totally as it should normally, but the cassette player doesn't work. So they need to come with their computer, and that was just opening it, changing the fuse, and then handing it back. So that was a 5-minute job for me, and I'm not even remotely competent when it comes to fixing machines.
Okay, but that's an easy one. Expensive though, I guess. I mean, it took you 5 minutes, but they were charged for more than 5 minutes, right?
I think a lot of those were actually done by pro bono, so just fix them and then we were good. So.
Okay, that's nice. If you wonder why we have all these colors in our faces, because the lights here is kind of changing.
It's Genesis Project's problem.
Yes, they have a really nice sign here, but it changes from green to yellow to violet.
Oh yeah, there is some sort of effect. I didn't notice that.
There is a very slow color cycling here.
Color cycling, that's a modern effect. So, and we're now back to Pex selling his Amiga in 1991 to buy a waterbed.
So that's also urban legend, but it's true actually. A waterbed then cost like 3,800, and coincidentally that was kind of exactly the money I got for selling my Amiga. I bought my Amiga for 3,800, smuggled into Sweden from Germany in the back trunk of the car.
Are we talking euros or Swedish crowns?
No, Swedish crowns. So 3,800 for buying it.
So it's like 350 euros.
Yeah, exactly. And then I sold
it
a couple of years later for 3,200 Swedish crowns. So for 600 Swedish crowns, I had entertainment for like three years. Kind of the best times of my life for just a small amount of money, actually.
To be honest, I guess the provenance in that machine would allow you to sell it like a factor of 10 what you actually bought it for, but that would be only me.
No, that's just a few people that would say that it's worth it. I don't know where it ended up.
If you have a machine on eBay that says
Mahoney's
noise
Amiga
tracker was made on this actual machine, that would sell for more than the average price.
Perhaps. I don't know. I could sell it to the Swedish House Mafia or Buzz Brown or Holger Lagerfeld or someone who earned a lot of money from making music and learning how to make music on Noise Tracker, for instance.
Yeah, that's sort of one of the bullets here we sort of passed. There are a number of people that launched their music careers and they grew into be really well-known musicians, starting as Noise Tracker as the sort of their base tool.
Yeah, it was kind of the first consumer product where you could play around with recording sounds and playing it back. Were kind of the quality of it was almost good enough for radio listening. I mean, people did music that kind of passed as background music in any radio channel. just because of you had the samples, you could get up to like 20 kilohertz of sample rates, and if you just was careful about of the fidelity of the samples, it worked just as well as any. I mean, take a listen to Eurythmics, Sweet Dreams or whatever. Really crappy drums, really crappy sound samples, really well engineered recorded vocals though. So recording vocals was a different kind of tea, but I mean the samples that Eurythmics used were ridiculously low quality, and you could surpass that with the hardware from the Amiga, absolutely.
And here I nod, like acknowledging the fact that I have no idea. I was absolutely sure that all of Eurythmics songs were quite okay.
Please
but,
don't insert Eurythmics into this video, because then it's all going to be censored.
No, we wouldn't do that, because then we would miss the €2 we earn from broadcasting it.
Ooh.
So
yeah.
sometimes we even make 5.
That's copyright for you, but don't start talking copyright. He's gonna go nuts.
My favorite topic. There is a special video on copyright. I don't remember the number of it, but it's a really early one.
You should invite Kingfisher from Triad and have a talk about copyright.
Yeah. That's a very good idea.
Could actually talk hours about that.
Yeah. Well, and I would agree with most of the things he would say about it. But okay, well, let's. So you lost the total interest in this and went away in 1991.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the time for growing up, getting girls, moving out, whatever, becoming an adult. And then, I mean, my way back into the computer scene was in 2003, where I suddenly saw new Commodore 64 demos on a machine that I thought like, well, we kind of did everything, so what's more to explore? And then they invented all these new tricks with the VIC chip of doing new graphics modes and scrolling the whole screen and doing VSP and AGSP and DISP and a lot of abbreviations of techniques that I never heard about when I was doing the old school demos in 1980s.
So 2003 was Bit Live 4 demo.
Yeah, what happened was that Chris Abbott kind of had these concerts where he brought in musicians like Rob Harbutter and Ben Daglish playing live in front of an audience, and it's just awesome. And my friend Yodel King, Panda of the Fires, said like, let's go there. We'll bring our girls and have a nice time in Brighton. Yeah. So we just went for a nice weekend in Brighton. I got to meet Rob Hubbard, talk to his wife. Actually, Rob Hubbard's wife is nicer than Rob Hubbard. But that's another story. Sorry if you watch this, but I enjoyed really much talking to your wife. But then you get to know that these legends, I mean, David Whittaker, I talked to him as well, they're just normal people hanging out, grabbing a beer.
I mean, they are people as well. So.
Yeah, and Martin Galway was there. We had a long discussion about whatever state of we did right back then. He was living in the US, so for him coming to Europe was really nice. I met Ben Daglish, got to talk to him. He passed away a couple of years ago.
Cancer.
Recently.
We hate cancer. We officially don't endorse cancer. That sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. A really nice guy. But meeting these people led to the next Bit Live event where Chris Abbott invited us. Actually, the drummer of the Stuck in the 80s, Andreas Wallström, kind of said like, you've done all these Commodore 64 remixes with vocals. Why don't you, and you kind of have an a cappella group, I've heard you, you go to London to sing Commodore 64 music a cappella in front of an audience, right?
Yeah.
And it was crazy. It was kind of like, no way, you're joking. And then you kind of, okay, I've never done anything like that. Yeah. Why not? So I started arranging just pure a cappella music for 6 people in Visa Röster. And we kind of made a CD out of it, mostly to rehearse the songs, because singing SID stuff is kind of complicated to remember. So for us to rehearse the songs, we kind of recorded them and made a CD out of it, and brought loads of CDs to London and sold every single CD that we managed to bring, signed and everything to the audience. It was really fun, actually. I think there's a clip of it on YouTube if you search for
So,
like these are
so
BitLive or
Bit
whatever.
Live was sort of the event, and this is event number 4. Is that it, or
Yeah,
Bit Live
absolutely.
4?
They've done many of these,
Yeah.
so they're still doing them. I mean, nowadays they're kind of in Norway having fast loaders, playing rock songs, Amiga rock songs, and bringing, I mean, in people well-known Commodore 64 game musicians from that time, playing instruments live in a nice pub setting. So.
And Chris Abbott is the guy that owns the right to Rob Hubbard's songs, right?
Yeah, what happened is Chris Abbott spent all of his life supporting SID musicians in one way or another. So he's been involved in the legal battles between Timbaland and stuff, and Glenn Rune Gallifors, and also David Whittaker and the Kernkraft Lazy Jones song.
Okay, so defending C64 musicians when their music has been used without any remuneration.
Absolutely, and protecting their rights and making sure that everything is okay, and also kind of being a middleman, taking care of how to handle the music industry in respect to all the songs. And his goal with the BitLive stuff was like, well, can't we make like orchestral versions with full symphony orchestra of this? Making Kickstarters, and actually, goddamn, he's a miracle doing this for real.
Yeah.
So having these concerts with a full symphony orchestra and doing recordings.
But it's something like Ova Sädström has been doing in Sweden, but not that was just not C64. It was sort of computer and console
what
music.
happened that he made this joystick session, so joystick concert with Malmö Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah.
They made like 12 concerts with Commodore 64 music and console music, and newer also like the. Yeah, I mean, newer game music is almost already orchestrated. So it was like the newer tracks actually, but the same audience though. Really nice. We were actually invited to Visa Röster to be part of one of these joystick concerts. Like, you could come and have like the band to warm up the audience and sing a couple of video songs a cappella.
I mean, it's local for you. It's Malmö and Lund are
we never did
neighboring
that,
cities.
so we were never part of it, but we had discussions on how it would fit. My kind of comment was like, we don't really fit to the target audience because we do it for the Commodore 64 nostalgia vibes, and I assume that the audience there wouldn't really have the personal relation with the songs.
And Ova is the guy that has a company together with Jimmy Wilhelmsson, who has done the Generation 64 book.
Yeah, they've written books about Commodore 64, the Generation 64, Generation 500, and I was. Do you know why they made these books? It kind of started with Jimmy contacting me and saying like, oh, this noise tracker thing, that's a 25-year anniversary of the release of it. Can we just have a lunch chat and see what happens? And during that lunch chat, I kind of said like, well, there's quite a lot of people like those over here actually, that has nice stories about how the Swedish technology sector kind of evolved from the demo scene. So I gave him a couple of examples of nice stories and nice people to talk to about how we actually created a lot of the technology that the Sweden companies are using. And he started to kind of, well, this is interesting. Maybe I should talk to some of the people you mentioned.
Could be a topic for a book.
Yeah, and it became a book, absolutely. And when he done one, he said like, oh, do you have any like more stories about Amiga 500 perhaps? And we created another list of, well, you could start talking to him and him and him. So it became 2 books, 2 in Swedish. Actually, one was translated to English.
It's really strange that the Amiga 500 book wasn't translated to English, because I guess that would have international implications as well. So I don't see why you would only translate.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know why.
I've talked to Jimmy about this several times, and he sort of mumbles. I don't know why.
But I'm the only.
It wouldn't be him doing it. It would be Sam Dyer from his partner in the UK that would do it. So Sam, if you're watching this, do make
the book
translation.
I'm the only person actually that's in both of the books. But I was allowed in the second book as well, mostly because I managed to convince Cactus to be part of it as well.
Okay. So you were alone in the 64 one, and
So-
then you were a team in the second one. Yeah.
So I kind of dragged Cactus into it, and I said, I interview you as a team if that's okay.
I bought an extra one of the Generation 64 and gave to my mom, and that was the first time she acknowledged that my youth using C64 computers wasn't all a waste.
Ooh.
Making it into a book is sort of making it in life.
And that comes from the person that was kind of organizer of FairLight and making sure that everyone fit into their place, and that's what you've been doing all your life.
My mom had very limited visibility over that, so
He's just doing weird stuff, closing his door, and then we don't see him for days, right?
that's focus.
Yeah.
So and then so that was 2003, and the next sort of recorded event is Exit in 2006.
Yeah, but that's a demo. I realized that the demo scene was still alive,
Yeah.
and I realized that they're having a data party like FairLight here,
Yeah.
but in Lund, in my hometown. So it was just a bicycle ride away to meet those wonderful people or weird people, depending on. Since I was
Wonderfully weird.
No, that's true.
There is no contradiction in wonderful and weird. Just so we make that sure.
And this
make sure
party
we
was
understand
kind of in a basement in Lund,
Yeah.
of a shady place, and you go in there and you meet all these people dressed in black, having all these nerdy conversations. I realized I met like Krill. And a lot of German people. And what are they doing in Sweden in 2000 and now? But I released a demo just because we've done a demo, let's release it there. I didn't spend the whole party there. I was kind of just, here's my demo and nice talking to you, and then I kind of left. So it was a very short party for me. I wasn't used to the way demo parties in 2000 were running.
You need to be sort of reintroduced to the concept, I guess.
I wasn't reintroduced. I kind of visited, and so I recognize him from back then, and him, and say like, "Hello, I'm Mahoney. Here's my demo." What are you doing? And then I didn't bring any hardware. I didn't bring any laptop or anything. Kind of just visited for an hour or two, and that's it.
And you easily catch the bug again of going and meeting people and having a beer and doing chats and all of that.
The real demo parties seems to be a nice place was Data Storm actually. I think.
Yeah.
I just joined. I mean, that's the first time I met Hedning, and we kind of sat next to each other, and he like, "Okay, what's your name?" I'm Pex Mahoney, and he like, "That Mahoney," and he like, "Whoa!" And then we realized we're kind of neighbors. So I mean, it's just that we went to Gothenburg to party, and then it became X, and then it became another Data Storm, and then you were kind of into.
I mean, you are a regular goer to all the parties now, so.
Yeah, not Revision. Revision doesn't work for me. It's too. I mean, the old school Commodore 64 part of Revision is way behind other European parties like X or the Swedish Gubbdata, FairLight, Data Storm. They all have nicer demos, nicer releases.
The more atmospheric.
Yeah, so Revision is kind of new school to me.
And Edison, you don't go to Edison either.
No, that's a Stockholm thing. Sorry.
We need to have a special talk about Edison sometime, but
sorry.
that wouldn't be you. Yeah, so it.
No, but actually, the time I spend on retro computing is kind of limited. I mean, I have a normal life, family, whatever, which means that I kind of very choosy about where I go and how much time I spend. I mean, whenever I make a demo, it's hours that I spend. It's like 30, 40 hours in making a release, and that's it. I know people that spend easily weeks or even months in doing demos, but I'm not one of them.
So in 2006, you also converted Amiga modules for a Nintendo. How did that come about? I mean, Nintendo is not like native.
No, but
typically there is the category of computer people and console people, and we rarely sort of overlap.
No, but the thing is that it's the same CPU in them. So I mean, you can still program it with normal CPUs. But I think it came about that I helped out in doing some music for console games. But I didn't really release my music. I just helped out in making sounds and making players for consoles, and it's just I can try the tools and see how they work, and I just made. I mean, I made music for platforms that I never really touched anyway, like Atari, ST, and NES, and just for fun.
I shouldn't say this. The console never really overlapped because Sensor had a lot of stuff doing on.
Yeah, but consoles they
Mega
are locked
Drive.
by nature, and that means that the demo scene or homebrew scene is kind of not that important. But they needed demo scenes to create the games or create the players or whatever. So I mean, DICE and those guys. I mean, they came from the demo scene. They just evolved into game developers.
So, is it fair to say from 2010 you've made sort of a restart? That's now. During 1991 and 2010, there are bits of. You released something and then nothing happened for 2 years and then something happened again. But from 2010, you have become more consistent in producing something that's available for everybody.
What happened then was, since I started going to parties, I also met the people that were active now, and I realized that this is what guys are doing. They still have an event in. I could add the inventive edge here still, which meant I started researching the sound chips and inventing new ways of playing samples on the old Commodore 64. That's been used by everyone now afterwards, because what I did, I not only invented it and made a demo about it, I also wrote a white paper about it, explaining this is how it's done, this is how you can do it, here's the source code, go ahead. Trying to insert that sample magic into the Commodore 64 platform, where has traditionally not been using samples just because of the ridiculous limitations that we have of 64 kilobytes of memory. I mean, imagine if you had a CD quality audio like 44 kilohertz in 8 bits, which doesn't really match the 16 bits of the CD, but that means you could fit 1.5 seconds of music into the memory until you run out completely of memory. But it all leads up to making nice tricks, calculating samples on the fly, or mixing samples, more like playing a module from Amiga, but on.
But I mean, generating the samples is more a thing on the Amiga. The first few years, it was basically things you just hadn't. You recorded them externally and then you used them, right?
Yeah, but generating samples on Amiga, I mean, that was kind of, you could do it, but nobody did it really. I mean, it was kind of Virgil that kind of made this Amiga clang, taking the knowledge from 4-clang and 64-clang on the PC scene and trying to generate samples before starting to play it. So it doesn't save memory, but it saves storage on disk.
Ah, okay. Well, you need to do it like while you're playing. It doesn't. It doesn't generate them while you're playing.
No, it's a pre-calculation step. Really well done. Really nice sounds you can get from almost nothing when you load it, but you still have the pre-calculation step. Which is nice, but it's kind of pre-calculate the samples and then you make the song in ProTracker just like any module.
Oh, okay.
But of course you had the music line editor that were kind of doing granular synthesis on the sounds, doing calculations on the fly. But you couldn't really afford that in games because you want all the CPU time for the game logic and not just calculating music, which is kind of static.
Yeah, music always sort of struggled in games. You have 3 raster lines and you have 5K of memory.
Yeah.
And it has to be really catchy. Like, what?
Yeah, but that's also why we remember the computer music from back then, because there were small, short, repetitive tunes that kind of just get stuck in your memory.
I mean, our FairLight music, which isn't ours, but it's the Dave Hanlon one from Do It Too. It's less than 2 pages of, and it takes 3 raster lines. It's absolutely minuscule.
But it's just dom dom dom. Dom dom dom.
And two of the channels are basically the same. It's just I think it's using the same sort of note data, but
but other FairLight music is like Thomas Danko. I mean, he's done this plastic pop. I heard it somewhere. No,
That
sorry.
one is slightly bigger, I would
Sorry,
say. But
a friend of mine says that he has heard something in something that I shouldn't know anything about. Sorry.
okay. So let's take them here in the order I have. Bootblock, loader, Love Data for Datastorm.
Love Data, that was just an Amiga boot block in the boot block
And that's
competition.
1024 bytes, and,
Yeah.
and a few of them needs to go because you need to boot, right?
Exactly. So you have 1 kilobyte of memory that loads the moment where you insert the disk into the Amiga, and then you try to make a demo that has this limit. And Love Data was just a poem actually about how you. It's a love poem that first is about love and then it's about loving data, and then you try to write as much text on the screen as possible from this 1 kilobyte of memory. So it's a way of doing your hand packing.
Working with the limitations, seeing that as a fun challenge. I think that's sort of what's driving most of the people here. That if they would have infinite opportunities, it would be boring, because then how are you creative in that context? You need something to work against.
Yeah, but the thing is that every person in this room here could be part of the PC scene and write shaders and do stuff there.
Not me.
But there's no challenge in it because it's too easy. Sorry guys, but it's too easy to write 4K demos with the shaders. And they all look the same almost, because it's like kind of a 3D world with a camera that bounces to some kind of audio. But it's kind of repeating itself, right?
Well, innovation. The limitation forces you to innovate. So.
Yeah, exactly. So.
And talking about something that is absolutely impossible is Tom Diner, the release you also did for Datastorm in 2010, an MP3 decoder on the C64.
Yeah, it's kind of a joke,
we already
right?
heard that CD quality you can do like 1.5 seconds.
Yeah.
But you played the entire song.
I did the entire song 2.5 minutes with lyrics
and video
and something happening on the screen at the same time. Clearly, when you could hear the lyrics and realize it's her singing, etc. But what you do, you need to do extreme optimization of everything. So it was the a cappella version of Tom Steiner, and the reason I chose that one was because it was used in the Fraunhofer Research Institute when they were implementing and making the MP3 format. They used that song as reference audio to check if their MP3 coding format would be good or not, because human voices is actually one of the things that we recognize the most if there's something wrong with them. We're so used to talking, so whenever we hear something wrong with this voice, then you realize, oh, this is a sample and not music. So I used that one, but I will talk technical things for 30 seconds. If you don't like that, just skip the video.
Don't.
So a voice is basically the bass frequency. It can go up and down. So that is the bass frequency. If you extract that from the singing, then you kind of get a pitch envelope saying like, well, this is the bass note, this is a 1, this is a 1. And if you do that in time, you can kind of have play that with the SID chip, just saying like this is the frequency and let's change it according to the pitch in the voice. Then you would recognize the melody. But in order to recognize these sounds, you separate the plosive sounds from the vocal sounds. So the plosive is like the so, and that is the noise sounds you make with making turbulent air from the mouth. And those you kind of use the SID chip's noise channel to emulate. So you emulate the plosive sounds with the noise from the SID chip. And then you have the vocals, the longer ones. They are all related to the bass frequency. So if I take an A, and just slide it, it's A. It's almost the same shape of the waveform, but you pitch shift it with the bass frequency. So if I can extract the waveform from the A and then pitch shift it, we can kind of play every part where her voice says A in any pitch. And then we do that for the other vocals like E, O, A, I, O. And we do recordings, we select like 128 of these different vocal sounds and save just the simple waveform, the repeating static pattern that you have. I think I broke the 30-second level now.
No,
Just stay with
that's
me for a
absolutely
little
fine.
bit.
That's absolutely fine.
And then so we have 128 different vocal sounds from the vowels, and then you pitch shift these. So what I did, I take the original song, I pitch everything down to one single frequency, and then I extract the waveforms, and then from these 60,000 possible waveforms that I should have used, I just select 128 of them and put them in memory. So what I have is a table of 128 waveforms, and then I have another table of which waveform am I supposed to be playing at one instant in time, and then we have the volume of that envelope, and then we have the volume of the noise part of that sound, and then we have the pitch in tables as well. And
Well, I mean, it's a deep analysis of the actual singing, so
Yeah.
it's not taking the raw dump and making an MP3 out of it.
No.
You're actually deconstructing the entire singing into components, and
Absolutely.
you emulate each of them. So
Exactly. I mean, a PC computer in 1997 could hardly play an MP3 song in real time.
Yeah.
I mean, that was when Winamp took the stage,
Yeah.
and you could kind of play music in real time and decode an MP3 song back then. But it's C64 CPU, it's less than 1 megahertz processor. It's like 1 million times slower, 1,000 times slower than a PC was at that time. So of course it's not the MP3 file format,
Yeah.
but it's kind of a well, MP3 is not true. It's a vocal vocoder more or less that will play the Tom Steiner song by Susan Vega. So,
do listen to that.
yeah, it's a nice one.
Yeah,
Really
yeah.
nice. Tragic story.
We will
though.
have a run through of a number of Pex's demos. Probably we won't be able to make it into this demo. Or this video. We will make a separate video about that, I guess.
Do I need to talk to this guy again?
Yes. Yes.
I'm doing something wrong, right?
Well, you should be happy because I had a talk with David Jacobi, and that recording actually failed. So we have 90 minutes of video where the audio is corrupted. So we can't broadcast that. So
I met David Jacob at
Yeah.
Åland on the way here. So nice guy. Hi, David.
talk to you soon.
Nice. Are we done? Or
No. We just have a few pages left. So
Okay, another 2 hours.
Cubase 64.
Yeah, that's the Tom's Diner again, actually.
Yeah.
But the thing is, not only did I play the 2 minutes of singing, I applied, I think it was 11 audio effects in real time on top of the voice. And as you heard before, I have the table, I have the waveforms, I have the plosives. If I just change the speed of which I change the waveforms, I have time stretch. I can take one where she's singing, I am sitting by the corner, and I could just stretch at I am sitting in, just by going through these waveforms at a slower pace. And time stretch is actually really difficult to do in the time domain. But since I had these waveforms, almost like doing a Fourier transform already, and then doing an inverse Fourier transform, and that is kind of impossible on 1 megahertz hardware. But I can kind of replay this in the phase vocoder format of granular synthesis, and that means time stretch is actually possible to do on an old computer. And on top of that, you can have the equalizer from the SID chip, you can change the volume, you can make a compressor that makes the silent parts
Is
louder.
this Cubase? I thought it was a MIDI thing.
Yeah, but Cubase, to start with, was kind of just MIDI thing.
Yeah.
But then you started the Cubase VST with virtual instruments and doing samples.
Okay.
So the early version of Cubase, or the version I was referring to, is where you can record samples and process these samples somehow. So what I did was these audio effects where you could do echo in real time, you could do dithering and subtle things, and also the sub bass, like adding a really deep bass notes that resembles the pitch of the song.
This pitch song, this might be totally wrong, but my understanding was that the synthesizer, the FairLight synthesizer, was the first one that didn't just play the notes faster in order to get a higher pitch. It was sort of extending it, or
the FairLight synthesis, which was ridiculously expensive back then.
Yeah.
It was kind of just manufactured in a couple of few ways. I mean, Peter Gabriel owned one of them.
Yeah.
And I guess ABBA owned one of them, and all these what gave them their signature sound actually.
Yeah.
But they had
Kate
like
Bush, I guess,
yeah,
was also
absolutely.
one of the owners.
And what happens was that then you could dedicate like one motherboard for playing one sample only, and that motherboard it did the processing and storage of the samples. Yeah. But that was like 1980, I would guess 1, 2, 3, something like that.
Yeah, very early.
And that's in the age of art of noise. Some my idols, of course, when it comes to music. That's why we have Noise Tracker. It comes from Art of Noise. I mean, they did music from samples, based on samples, based on stupid sounds, and I just love that. So, but the FairLight synthesizer, it kind of did this Fourier transform and analysis, but with ridiculously expensive hardware. So it was kind of
it was expensive to buy, but it was also very expensive to produce. So they didn't make a lot of money. So it was an expensive piece of hardware that.
But it had
they didn't make enough money.
It was one of the first computers that had a pen input for doing things. So it's very inventive as well and difficult to use. So I mean, you needed an engineer to understand it to know how to use it.
Yeah, there are documentaries about the FairLight synthesizer. So I would recommend watching those.
Yeah.
And it's named after the ferry in the Sydney Harbour.
It's not named after the
no, it's no, I must humbly admit that it's actually the other way around. We have sort of taken it from the game by Bosse Youngeboy and also from the synthesizer.
Yeah.
Okay, so and then Storebro. Now we're in 2011.
Okay, Storebro was
which is Big Brother.
Yeah. There was a party coming up in Lund, my hometown again. I knew there were only
also my hometown.
Yeah, there wouldn't be only Scandinavians at that party, and as we said before, Danish and Norwegian guy can understand Swedish. So I said like, let's make a Swedish Commodore demo. Not only having this narrow subgroup of doing demos on old computers, but let's have a subgroup of doing demos on old hardware in Swedish. And so I took a song and made a cover on it, and the song is from Electric Banana Band. So Lasse Åberg och Klasse Möllberg och Janne Schaffer. And it's a really nice song with a really scary lyrics because it's all about surveillance and
Big Brother.
Big Brother is watching you and watch out, etc.
Very 1984 thematics.
Yeah, so I switched some of the lyrics to fit a normal setting because that's in the time frame where Sweden had decided that every email that you send is about to be read by someone. Yeah. So every email is kind of not secret anymore. The government and the military will read your email. Yeah. And I was kind of like, okay, let's make a demo in Swedish on the Commodore 64 about surveillance. And,
very political. I mean, from what demos are normally about, it's very political.
Yeah, and I made a real-time vocoder. It was kind of
Of course you did.
So it's playing 3 channels of song, as good as it can, of course, together with the graphics, while having a demo as well on the screen. I think it's the first demo where I use every single clock cycle of the CPU for anything, because I mainly use the CPU for the sound, for doing the vocoder, but every cycle that is spare is used to produce visuals on the screen as well.
And the visuals, they are also absolutely brilliant. The coupe font that you were using, magic. Yeah, magic.
But people were kind of scared and just blast away because I don't know how many demo parties you've been to, but the thing is here that there was a deadline of handing in your demo at like 8 o'clock in the evening. But our friends from Offense and FairLight and ProSonics, they had a demo with Press Space Odyssey, I think it was, and they didn't manage. They were too drunk to link the demo.
Could have happened.
So they kind of missed the deadline, not by 1 hour, not by 2 hours, but by 3, 4, 5 hours or something. So the demo party, the demo compo was postponed another a couple of hours. So this demo is doable. Its debut was done at 4 o'clock in the morning. on a Saturday in Lund, and the people there were really tired, really drunk, really happy, and so it was a marvelous feeling and atmosphere in the room at that time, and just seeing this. Okay, it's singing and it's Swedish and we're here and this is kind of a first whatever, and it has a message that we can all relate to, and it was a surprise to everyone, I think.
How did you didn't win the competition? Did you? No,
that's not a winner.
No. No, it's like the offense thing at last Gubbdata, which was very, very strong, but. People vote for the happy, cheery thing. Yeah,
but I mean, the thing is, I never do stuff to win competitions. That's
no, you win hearts. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's if you want to win by making a demo or win by, making a song that everyone will like, then you need to do something that relates to something else that everyone likes. And I miss the inventive step here. So I just can't take someone else's demo and just make another one that is exactly the same because they like that one, and let's make another one. So I'm trying to make the opposite. I want to do something that someone will react to. Either say, wow, how is that possible? Or, ooh, that's a new one, a new way of doing it. And well, that's kind of boring, but it's really impressive. How did you... So I've done really boring demos, like doing sub-pixel graphics on the Commodore 64. Looks really nice, but no one cares because you compare it to any other newer graphic engine.
Well, I mean, you vote for something you understand, and if it's beyond the comprehension of most people, it's very difficult to sort of attract their votes.
Yeah, of course, but the demo scene now is mostly about okay, we are 30 people that are actually hardcore programmers on the Commodore 64, which means that for stuff that is hardcore programming, there's only 29 people that would appreciate it. And then you have the other people at the same demo compo or voters, and they would say like, that's kind of, is that difficult? Is that new? It looks nice, but
I'd rather vote for this nice picture that has so many colors on it.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't do graphics, at least not well. So the demos I made myself is kind of boring in that sense. But now I am doing demos together with friends that can do music. So I leave the music to someone that's good at music, and leave the graphics to someone that's excellent in graphics.
It should be said also that sort of you lost the cactus part of the duo on the way, right? Because he didn't return as you did.
No, he didn't. Mostly because he found his challenges somewhere else, actually.
In his professional career,
career, absolutely. And we live like 300 meters apart, so I know him pretty well. We work at the same place. If I just stretch my toes from my desk, I will kind of hit his shoes, so we're kind of very close still. And he's a really nice guy. But I brought him to some demo parties, and he talks to people. But producing, demos for him today is just...
For some people, this was a sort of a phase, and for some it's more of a lifestyle, and eventually you were dragged back, and then it's very difficult to get out. Once you can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. So
no, but mentally I have a background process somewhere here saying like, ooh, I could maybe do this in another way. Maybe I can
totally relate to that.
That's the inventor in me that's kind of starts whenever I see something.
So in 2013 you won the music competition at Datastorm.
Ooh. Yeah, but that's again with...
A winner? We have a winner!
Yeah, that's strange. What I did was a new music routine. So it was a new way of playing music on the Commodore 64. So I actually used the human code machine's mixing routine that kind of plays samples and mixes them in real time. So you can play samples in 2 or 3 channels. I remade his routine. We helped optimize it together, also the old one, so we helped each other a lot. I just changed it to add an echo to the samples. So we had samples with echoes, and then we had SIDS channels as well. And I tried to make some music with echoes in the samples. And it just worked out really well.
Now we have demos playing in the background. I hope you can still hear us. So And then we go to music run stop.
Yeah, that was the
CD
sample.
quality on the C64, and
Yeah.
you referenced before that you can go up to 20 kilohertz, and now you're requesting, you're doing 44 anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the way of playing samples in a new way. Because the C64 SID chip, sometimes it clicks really, really loud when you start a song or you start a game. And I was trying like, well, why does it do that? And I kind of tried 10 different SID chips and measured them to see if I could abuse that click for something.
Yeah.
So I've just invented a new sample playing routine, a way of playing samples. And then I just said like, okay, let's do a Kraftwerk version of CD quality. At least the frequency is correct. I mean, the resolution is kind of 6.5 bits or something for which amplitudes you can get from this.
Okay.
Way.
I do have Valentine's Melody Festival and Sport. I have no idea why I wrote that. Valentine.
Okay. I don't know why you written that.
Are there things that sort of you can relate to in this context?
No, not really.
What kind of idiot wrote this script? Oh yeah, that was me, sorry. But I have one quote that I extracted from here.
Yeah.
Ritually play with toys from your childhood. That is a text of beauty. Ritually play with toys from your childhood.
Isn't that exactly what we do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Under traditional setting, we kind of get together and just do the stuff that we did 30 years ago.
One of the other things you have said as well is it's never too late to have a happy childhood. That's also brilliant.
Yeah, that's true. And isn't that we kind of what we're doing right now?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. If you move away, you can see here, somewhere here, you see people playing games with their kids and having a fun time with the games that we used to play when we were children. And it's just a way of bringing fun stuff into life again.
Yeah, so we are actually reliving our childhood, going back to infancy, basically.
But what I'm doing now is I'm in the X-Demo competitions in Netherlands. I kind of, it's too much effort to write demos myself. So I kind of got together with Human Code Machine and his friends to make demos in a new group.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, this one-man army, it's a nice...
we don't have to do that shit anymore. So we just get together. You're doing music, you're doing graphics, I can do the coding, and we just make something that...
That's what groups are all about, actually, to be honest.
But I skipped that for my first 25 years. And now Performance is a group where we kind of said like anyone who wants to join, yes, please come, bring something to the table, and we just do it. So.
Yeah, we have seen more of that recently. I mean, big efforts from collaborations.
And that's just because it's not worth the 200 hours that it will take to make a top-notch demo on your own. Which means that if you're 10 people and you can collaborate, maybe you can bring that down to manageable levels of effort.
Sharing. And you also did a Vectrex demo in 2014. I mean, what kind of CPU is that? I know that the screen is really weird because it's
not weird, it's wonderful. The screen is a laser beam, more or less, or an electron
We already
beam.
established that weird is nice, so that's...
So you have to, I mean, a normal TV, CRT TV, there's an electron beam that kind of draws the whole image, pixel by pixel. The Vectrex doesn't have pixels, so the beam steering itself.
I thought that was like spiral.
You can control it in the X and Y direction, and then the intensity. So you kind of draw with a beam, whatever shapes you want to. So making a demo there is about trying to control this pen to draw a nice shape and nice figures.
It's like turtle graphics.
Yeah, absolutely, turtle graphics. If you want to draw a bitmap, then you need to kind of emulate the way the TV does. But if you make it in a too large area, it starts flickering because it takes quite a while to draw it all, and it's slightly slower than a TV. So you need to limit the number of lines that you draw. In an
So
interesting
this
way.
horizontal blank and vertical blank,
Doesn't
those
exist.
they don't exist.
No, it doesn't exist. So
But how long? And then you have like an afterglow. So the line you've drawn is
exactly.
there for a while, and then you need to draw it again to ensure that it
So
doesn't
if you
kind of
want
fade
this
out.
static image, you need to draw it all the time.
Yeah.
So circle, you need to go around like this. Just redraw it all the time. But the reason why I did a Vectrex demo was that Andreas Hedin, he brought a Vectrex to Gubbdata, just a demo party, and said like, oh, here's I just bought this, if anyone wants to play with it.
Yeah.
And I realized that there's a cartridge here that you can reprogram. Let's see what I can do during this party. So I just made a demo for Vectrex there.
Yeah.
And since I knew the assembly code from the Commodore 64, it's the same CPU.
It's
so
6502 in
yeah,
it. Oh,
so
okay.
it's kind of easy to program it. It's just that the special chips and the steering of the beam is completely different. So it's just.
Is there an emulator for it, so you can
absolutely.
actually debug okay?
So you can, and
that shortens the development cycle, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
You can't burn EPROMs.
Yeah, and the fun thing is, I've been doing demos on the Commodore 64 in modern times, but I haven't owned any Commodore hardware since 1991. So I don't own a Commodore 64, I don't own an Amiga, but I have friends who owns Commodore 64, so I can just send my demos to them. Please, can you check this on real hardware? And thankfully, it kind of works most of the time at least.
And you are still kind of pushing the limits, and those are the cases where you really want to test it on real hardware. And
yeah, but the thing is that sometimes I prove that the emulators are wrong. So the sample playing routine in 2014 for Music Run Stop, it worked crap on the emulators, but wonderfully on the real hardware.
Okay.
And then I kind of send a bug report saying like, you need to improve your emulation because of this and this and this. So please make sure that it's useful for newer demos.
Yeah. Have they changed that? Or?
Absolutely, they
Great.
fixed it. So it can play samples now like the real hardware can do.
Gröpas runs a tight ship. I know that he doesn't get the appreciation he really deserves for all the amount of work he pulls into that. And,
I mean, without emulators today, the Commodore 64 demo scene would be dead.
Yeah.
Because the Vice emulator is so accurate and so good that we can use it to do cross-development easily, which is just the basis of.
So those complaining about Vice, do take a moment and realize that what you see on the C64 that is developed now is a lot about people running their stuff on Vice. So that is an enabler. So we should all appreciate the work that they put into it.
Yeah. I think we're done, right?
No. B together. X for 2014.
X 2014.
Yeah.
Which was that one? Be Together. Oh, but that was the last one-man show demo I did, actually.
And the message there was get the fuck off the internet.
Yeah, people, you there, you've just spent an hour or 1.5 hours in listening to us when you could actually be doing something creative.
Yeah.
So it's really Facebook and social media is the message there is that it sucks up all your energy, and afterwards you kind of just feel empty anyways. So please use your time wisely, because spending it in watching TV series or stuff like that, no, I don't think that's life. At least not for me, that's not life. And I made a demo, but
it's fine if you don't agree, because we all choose our paths in life, and if you want to watch, that's fine.
Yeah, but
and we like you for watching this. So.
Yeah, that's true. But internet will turn you into a squirrel with like your attention span is kind of 5 seconds, and if you have any deeper thoughts that will last more than 5 seconds, it's like, that's too much for me. Let's watch another video on YouTube. So.
But this one is long enough for like stretching the attention span of people, I would say.
If you're still listening to us,
then you are one of the heroes. So, and then you collaborated with FairLight for We Are Demo. Which part were you doing there? I don't remember that.
No, Pantaloon, he called me one day and said like, we're doing a demo, but we suck at doing samples in demos. So could you please just help out with doing a music part that uses samples in the demo?
Okay.
And I kind of said, okay. I want half of the memory, I want all of the raster time, and yeah, I'll make some music for you. And then I did 64 kilohertz samples with a screen full of graphics and moving graphics as well.
So that's how it works. You negotiate the number of resources you get access to.
Absolutely. So,
and they are very limited to start with, I
yeah,
should say.
so half of the memory was excellent graphics by Paul, and then the other half was music that I did samples from. And the story about how it was done is maybe too long to take now, but I actually rewrote the Vice emulator to keep track of every clock cycle that I had available to update the sound chip. And then I adapted these samples to when I could play them, depending on where there were sprites and bad lines on the screen. But that's too technical for most of you. But it's a way of inventing new ways of playing.
We've exposed them to sample theory, so
maybe you're okay with it. But what happens is that some reviewers said, like, this is actually the first time that we have a Commodore 64 sample part where you don't react to the sample being bad quality or being low fidelity or anything. It's a guitar part with drums and vocoder in it, so it's kind of like trying to blend into the PCD scene. And I think it won the revision competition that year or something. At least really
I mean, most of Pantaloon's demos have been doing really fine. He was beaten by Bob and Sensor once, and that still bugs him. And then concert by performers.
Yeah, that's the collaboration with the Human Code Machine. So it's a tribute to the Thrust demo that was made long ago, and it was a image of people playing an orchestra with a really nice song. And we just thought, like, let's do a demo that honors this. Demo of Demos, one of the first music demos that
was it Ian and Mick that did the original, or who was it?
And so we kind of just did a music demo, but laced with a theme of the Commodore 64 game heroes going to a concert and making sure they get tickets in a nice way. And then there was a stage with Hubbard's name all over it. It's
a bit like Trapped. It's a storytelling video. I like that.
It's very well done, but it's impossible to find on the internet, because if you're searching for concert, nobody uses that word, right?
No, it's a very uncommon word.
And then you search for performer, and there's another common word. So nobody can find it unless they're really
CSDB. You cannot make a general search for it. That would be
you can find it there, of course.
And then one of my personal favorites, scrolltext.com.
Ooh. So you're using that one?
Well, not using. I mean, getting lost there and searching around.
Scrolltext. I mean, it's like the word scrolltext.com. It's actually kind of hidden. So you won't find it in Google. You won't find it in any search engine. It's completely locked down from search engines, because it's a document where I scanned 100,000 demos looking for text, and then saving that text in a database and making it searchable.
My understanding, if I remember right, you start the demo and then you reset the machine, or you look at the entire memory and you look for it. You look for like valid text segments and you extract that.
What happens was that I got hold of the Mason archives, which is an excellent archive of all games ever released. And then there's another section of demos where also kind of all the demos ever released. And then I take every single file on every disk and run it for a couple of seconds in warp mode, which means that it managed to unpack itself. It managed to start running in memory. And then I just save all of the memory and start looking for strings or parts of text. And then I just turn that into a MySQL database and a web front end, which means you can kind of search every scroll text ever made on the Commodore 64 and try to find references, greetings, who greets what.
Scrolltext.com. I'm sure we would have a link in the description.
It was part of a wild demo competition. So I had a computer just emulating Commodore 64 demos from, it's kind of every demo that's ever been stored in those archives. And kind of fun, kind of scary. Some people asked me to remove parts of text that they weren't proud of. And so that's done. and it's been kind of lying around in that URL, but you don't find it if you search with Google or Bing or Yahoo or whatever. So.
But you are hereby invited.
Yeah, but you like that one. It's
Yeah. I like the idea and I like the execution as well. So
it kind of raises the archivists in you and the historian, like kind of, what happened back then, and who was the first starting writing about the disk scrollers, and you can kind of answer those questions.
And the thing that starts spinning is, what if you release like an AI over it, and who greets who, and about building the social graph between groups over time and all of that?
Yeah, you could, absolutely. But it's kind of scary as well, because I mean, the scroll texts that it contains is kind of the blogs of the 80s. So it was kind of a way of writing about life, but it wasn't really meant for mass consumption. It was meant for an internal release between friends or acquaintances. And now, I mean, internet is just a huge surveillance machine, and then it's kind of like, okay, maybe we shouldn't feed the rest of the world with these texts.
So do read it, but don't expect it to be sort of spread out any wider than this. Belong, you won the DataStorm 4K in 2017.
Yeah, that's true. It's a Commodore 64 demo. As 4K demos on the Commodore 64 is kind of stupid.
Yeah, if you don't think the 64K is limited enough, let's limit it further.
No, but the 4K limit is just super unnatural. There's no natural 4K limit anywhere in the 64. But it's about loading 4K kilobytes from the disk or the tape and then run a demo. And I just try to fit as many small effects into one part as possible, with the storyline of saying I don't belong, I don't fit in. But that's okay, I belong with those who don't belong. So that's the lyrics of that demo, but it's presented in a 2-minute or 3-minute demo.
Very nice. Should be available on CSDB, so shouldn't be difficult to find.
Yeah.
That's also where you did the interview with Chris Hulsbeck.
Ooh, that was nice.
Yeah, that was really nice.
And I heard afterwards, I heard like, okay, Chris Hulsbeck and Mahoney, who's interviewing who actually? But I was the one interviewing Chris Hulsbeck.
Well, to be honest, I think it would be very difficult to find somebody who's more like read up and have more educated questions than you would have with Chris.
I kind of, the reason why I did this interview with him was that he was invited to DataStorm, but he didn't want to have a talk himself, because standing in front of people saying like, this is me, I'm doing this, I've done this, that's kind of not his way. He's a very humble person, and he wasn't really comfortable in doing that. So you on spot asked me like, you're the one, could you please make sure that he's comfortable on stage? And okay. And I started looking at older interviews with him, and I realized there's a huge gap between he's an awesome musician, awesome coder, and an inventor of a whole new genre of computer music, game music. But I didn't feel that he got the cred for it. He was mostly interviewed by people who liked the music he did. And then I tried the angle of, well, you're a complex person, you've done this and this and this and this. And what was your creative process? How did you go about it? What made you do this, and how did you think it was received? So I just tried to make an interview that I myself would like to look.
Ask the questions, not like to fill a period of time, but you were actually curious about.
So we had a really nice time.
It's a great one. I could encourage you to watch that, and I'm sure we can kind of fill in a link to that one as well, because that is available. So. And then the next thing is C-bit 18 by Performers.
C-bit.
Or Commodore bits, or...
I mean, there was this C-bit show. It was a trade show, actually, like a game convention in Germany. And we kind of made a demo to honor that. I mean, there was this very famous demo that was released there by Red Sector. So it's actually Romeo and I who did the music for that one, and we try to honor that piece of music and that demo. Not by doing a demo that looked like the demo back then, but actually taking the music and making it fit as good as possible into the Commodore 64 world. And then that's when performers were in a stage where we tried to make difficult things again by doing coding that requires a lot of thinking. So there's trying to break records and making it, package it in a modern way. It's a really nice demo, I would say, and I'm proud of the parts.
That's actually one of the things we will be looking at when we will be looking at demos, I'm sure. So
yeah, okay.
They say so much. FairLight 2019. So this is this event, but
4 years ago.
The first one, I guess. Then.
It could be. It was a party release actually. So I started coding it on the train here, and I was trying to say like how much text can I fit into the screen if I interlace it sideways. So I took the Amiga font, and as long as you scroll it half a pixel every frame, you can kind of emulate a higher resolution on the screen. And then the theme of the demo is that people talk a lot, and it's all about from the perspective of a cat that looks at people and say like, oh, strange that they keep talking all the time. Why can't they just enjoy life instead? But that's
cats enjoying life. They enjoy life by sleeping, so it's a...
yeah, I think so. But that's a demo made for the party.
And then my notes are flaky here, but Nyheter, this news thing, that was something released at Gubbdata, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a wild compo thing. What we did was we connected the Commodore 64 computer, that is 40 years old, to the internet. But you couldn't browse any news page. You could browse 4 news pages in real time. So Aftonbladet, Svenska Dagbladet, Aftonposten, Dagbladet, I don't know.
Scandinavian newspapers.
Scandinavian newspapers. So we could read the news in real time. We got the. Actually, we managed to change the backend. So not only they provided JPEG and PNG images, but they also provided koala images for Commodore 64 consumers. So
Syfoid works there and sort of made that possible. So there was a connection to the back-end side of things. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was an online news viewer for Commodore 64. Strange.
I know this has been really long, but let's just take a few of your highlights from your personal life as well. So you started out doing chip productions for VLSI,
yeah, absolutely.
In Norway.
I'm a chip designer, so I design chips. Exactly.
Is that ASICs and
absolutely the stuff that you have in your computer already? But I do it for companies.
The same thing that Peter is doing, Trasher is doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So we design chips. I've been doing it for 20 years. I moved to Norway and did that for a couple of years in Oslo, and then moved back.
And then you work for Ericsson Mobile, Precise Biometrics.
Yeah.
But for me, Precise Biometrics, isn't that the algorithm for fingerprint?
It's fingerprint verification.
Because fingerprint card was sort of selling the implementation.
No, that's not really. They were kind of competitors.
Okay.
But now fingerprint cards is kind of bought by Precise.
Oh, okay.
It's a corporate history that.
So Precise is the one that actually survived.
Yeah, I would say so, but I don't really know, and I don't really care. Sorry, but it's all about money, and I'm not that interested in money actually.
And then Business Security. Was that the name of the company? Was that?
Yeah, it used to be. They changed the name now, but
that's a very generic name, I would say. That's very descriptive, but.
Yeah, I mean they are doing security products. Been doing that for military grade applications as well. So yeah, I was involved in that.
And now you're back to Ericsson, but you're sort of not working for Ericsson. You're studying.
I'm doing research actually. So what I'm doing is working as an industrial PhD, doing research for Ericsson, but also at the Department of Automatic Control at Lund University. Also with people in mathematical statistics and Department of Psychology. So I'm trying to bring these together and do things that are so difficult that it wouldn't be enough to do it at one department at the university.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's like demo producing, but with real life problems.
Bringing down sort of not conflicting, but different sets,
views of the world,
and then bringing that. So 1 + 1 + 1 turning to 12 or something. Like I love that. That's what I do, and it's really fun actually. But it's also a privilege to be paid to read books and be paid to invent stuff that nobody has done before. So I had the other issue. I had the other issue. I was paying a lot, I was paying a lot of money to read books.
Hey, come.
Okay, so
the thing is, this guy here. Hey, Aram.
Hey.
You're on TV.
Hey.
Yes.
Hey, TV.
FairLight TV. So
Nice.
who are you and why are you here?
I'm Trident of FairLight.
Trident of FairLight. So we need to stop now because you're going to have a talk, right?
Yeah.
So what's the topic?
The topic is unexpanded graphics in the border of the Commodore 64 with ghost bytes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That's
Nice.
the topic we had on the last FairLight TV. So you already know all about that. So
Okay, no problem.
So just a summary of Adam here is that when he was a member of Active, when he wasn't active, and now when he turned active, he's a member of FairLight.
Yeah. Well, I was inactive and now I'm in FairLight.
Oh.
Yeah. So
That's nice. Which means that we're taking another break, right? Because you should own the stage now.
yeah.
So we'll be taking a break.
See you in a few seconds.
You stay there, and we'll see you in a few seconds. So welcome back to this last part. We actually had to move because of technical reasons, but it doesn't matter.
Battery run out both in the camera and in my laptop, so this is sort of a last resort.
You're talking way too much, but we managed to light a fire. It's really cozy.
It's super cozy.
And in one hour's time, it's actually the demo competition of FieldData going on this big screen here. So we're having a really good time, actually.
And we should have made it. We should have concluded before at the end of the last segment, but we didn't do that.
But where were we? I mean, you know that already, but where were we?
A few things. Visa röster is one thing you have to explain a bit more.
Oh, yeah, that's a crazy thing.
You did touch upon it on the
absolutely.
the performance.
Andreas Wallström kind of asked. I made remixes of Commodore 64 audio, really fun. But I wanted to have someone singing, not vocals, but not lyrics, but just using the human voice as an instrument. Mm-hmm. And using one person as an instrument, it could work. Using many people as instruments, that's a cappella. And I've been doing that for 10 years before I started doing it with Visa Röster. And it was just, the SID chip has 3 channels. Well, let's sing SID music with 6 people and make some show about it and have fun more recently. And we made a couple of songs. We did them performed in front of people in London, Copenhagen, Italy, Sweden, just having fun and trying to hit that nostalgic vibe about the music that we actually heard a lot when we were kids, but having it with professional singers. I'm no pro singers, but my friends were and still are. And so it kind of was the glue that melted together the nostalgic vibes from the Commodore and old computers with people that were really musical talented. So I was
and
the
you
worst.
basically started like singing in groups already when you went to Norway, right? So
even before that. So I started singing when I was 12, I think. I played the piano for 30 years and just for fun. I never done it at the same time, actually. I never played the piano and been singing at the same time. So either the piano or the singing, but it never came together.
We will have links to Visa Röster, and you can explore the vast array of stuff you have actually been producing over that. So it's not only C64 related, it's not like C64 singing, that's just one aspect of what you have been doing, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it started out singing at parties, singing at festivities, singing Latin music. I mean, we've been into other kinds of retro music as well. But C64, it was kind of unexpected. It's like making a demo that is just not fit the general formula, and then combining retro music with an even narrower a cappella singing on a high level. It's so stupid, so crazy that it actually works.
Well, I mean, it's sort of a wild compo entry, thinking outside the box, but still sort of doing
perhaps
something that sort of spiritually starts from the platform.
Yeah, that's true.
And you do have this proverb collection as well, the ordspråk.
Yeah, that's another story. I did. I went to the high school in Sweden, and there you do a quite long work, huge work where you do something technically difficult. But I saw my teachers back then were kind of not on par with my expectations, so I forced them. I did this work in Swedish with my Swedish teacher instead of with the mathematics, or even worse, they didn't understand what I was programming back then. So taking the physics teacher who was in charge of teaching us how to program, it actually turned out I was teaching her how to use the computers in school. So I didn't want them as my supervisors for this. So I started collecting proverbs.
I guess a number of us nerds could relate to the fact that the teachers trying to educate us on programming were on a level that we were years ago.
It's just silly. So we had way more experience. We actually had touch typing lessons in school. We had a mechanical typewriter where you're supposed to write as accurately as possible, just copy a text onto a typewriter. And my teacher, poor her, my friends in school say like, well, Pex is kind of fast typer, just due to using computers. My teacher wasn't that good. So they set up a competition between me and the teacher, and I was kind of 3 times faster than her in typing. And after that one, she said, "You don't need to come to these lessons, so just take the semester off. It's perfectly fine."
I also took those lessons. I think they were compulsory at the time. And,
yeah, absolutely.
So I'm typing really hard because I was sort of brought up using a typewriter, and so it's not touch typing; it's like slam typing.
Yeah, absolutely. But it kind of worked. But how did we end up in touch typing in school? Yeah, it was a proverb collection. So it was kind of I just collected proverbs. I turned that into a web page, and I did. Excuse me, slightly to the left, please.
We are recording.
We're recording an interview here.
A little bit.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
So that proverb collection got online in 2005, which was quite early for being a web page about proverbs, and that's been the Sweden's most, accessed and collection of proverbs. And I still run it.
It's massive.
Yeah, it's huge. But it's like a wiki page where people collaborate on doing proverbs. But that's okay. It's getting really warm.
It's getting warm. So, to be honest, I think we've sort of run out of script. At last, we ran out of script. So we do have like a long list of demos that we should watch, but we need to postpone that into a later point. So we do the interview part now, and then we have another session. I'm going to have that with LFT as well. So we could possibly try to arrange something which is a collaboration where we have both your intelligences.
Yeah, it could be. We could watch.
That could be like water. I would be the H, and you would be the 2 massive O's.
Yeah, that works, which means that we probably end this video now. And there's a separate video of us watching demos, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for watching, and I have no idea how long this one will be.
I'm so surprised that you're still here. Thank you for your time. It's really fun.
It was really fun recording it, and the challenge of doing it in a totally different setup was absolutely fabulous.
It's much nicer.
And Pex has, of course, been instrumental in making it work.
But one way of thinking is like it's always nicer to meet each other physically. So whenever you can, try to get out of your house and just make sure that you meet people, because I would love to meet you, but you're not here. So
come to nerd parties.
I have to meet these guys.
Yeah.
But
super. Thanks a lot.
You.
Bye.